Good morning. Welcome. It's our 60th Coffee with the Commissioner meeting on Zoom. It's Wednesday morning. It's a little bit after 6:30, and we got a lot to talk about. And very, very happy that you're here this morning with us. Very, very happy that we have our County Administrator, Janice Gilley, here. We have Escambia County's Emergency Manager, Eric Gilmore, joining us on the phone line this morning. And then our special guest this morning is the Escambia County Marine Resources Manager, Robert Turpin. And man, we've got a lot to discuss as we go into the warm season here in Escambia County, Pensacola. People start boating activities, fishing, going to the beach. So Escambia County has a lot of input and we do a lot to really enhance the natural environment here. So looking forward to a great conversation with Robert this morning. So good morning to everyone. Thanks for being here. And Janice, as we typically do, I will defer to you to start off and give us an update from the county administrator.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I think one of the exciting things that we've had this week is we had the Bellevue Library groundbreaking.
Yes.
We talked about that. That's going to be huge for that part of our county to actually have a gathering place and a place for what we said, literary expansion and cultural expansion, and an opportunity for a community room for citizens to be able to meet and, just kind of gather together there. It's going to be great because it's not far from where a school is. And so the goal is for those students to have an opportunity after school or maybe even during school to come over and visit the library and get more resources. So thanks to you for bringing that to your part of the county. Because I think you said it's the first time there's been anything like that in that part of the community. So I think that's
true.
Yep. We have also been talking about the 200th anniversary of the county.
Yes.
We'll be having a huge celebration. Let's hope that weather pending on July 17th. And we'll start the morning with an early morning Creek Indian prayer and a sunrise event. And then the whole day there'll be all kinds of activities to celebrate all the different cultures that we've had here in Escambia County. And I guess hopefully folks have noticed that every Monday the News Journal puts together a snippet about our history, and it has been exploring all of the socioeconomic and cultural diversity of our county since we started 200 years ago. One of the other things that we have going on right now is, we do still have restore funding coming in from the federal government from the oil spill. And one of the processes that's available right now is for citizens to give input into 11 Mile Creek. As you know, 11 Mile Creek is an area that kind of goes between yours and Commissioner Berry's district, up around 9 Mile Road and a little bit north in the Pine Forest area. And unfortunately, there are consequences to that creek filling up, sedimentation and things like that. And so we're hoping to use restore dollars to provide not only stormwater ponds to help catch some of the drainage, but also be able to restore that creek to a level that allows more flow whenever we have large rainstorms and things like that. Let's see. The other thing that we've had is we had a rural tech talk last week related to rural broadband. And that is really important to folks, not only in the rural areas of our community, but anywhere in our community where you have gaps in internet or in types of broadband service. As we know, our community and our society is becoming much more dependent on the internet. And particularly with COVID, we have tried to, I guess more people have had to work remotely or work from home. And so they have become more reliant on those types of services. And so there was a good conversation that Commissioner Berry hosted up at Stefani Road. The CFO, Chief Financial Officer for the state, Jimmy Petronas, came. And we also had Charter Spectrum executives that came in from South Florida. And what they're talking about is how we not only take the study that Escambia County did last year with CARES dollars, but also have those and match with federal dollars that are now coming through from the federal stimulus. And then the other thing that we're talking about is it tomorrow at the Committee of the Whole. We will continue to talk about the Civic Center. As you know, the Civic Center was a commitment that our community made, in the 80s, whenever we built the facility. Right. So that's probably why the exterior is a little outdated, is, when it was built. But, it is it is a very important part, I think, of a lot of activities in our community, whether it be this, whether it be the graduations that we've come accustomed to having there since the 80s, or it be, concerts, or like I think Pensacon is scheduled to be there. Of course, we have a hockey team
Yep.
because we have that facility. And so there are a lot of, there are just a lot of activities that need that type of facility to be able to operate. And so, it's been a tough year. We have needed that
Yeah.
facility for sheltering in between storms, but it also costs. It's not something that you can just, turn the key and open it whenever you like. And so there are expenses. And so because of the pandemic, we've had some experience. We've experienced, obviously, they've experienced a lot of reduction. So I think they typically have about 400 events. This past year, they had about 95 events. So you can
Yeah.
see a huge reduction in the number of activities, which then relates to the opportunity for them to get revenue. So
Yep.
as you can see, I mean, that's a, it's, and I think that the Civic Center has been a big issue just from a community perspective anyway, because the commitment to keep it open, as I just said, requires revenue, requires
Yep.
money either from them generating it or us providing it through revenue support, whether it be to tourist tax development or anything else. So anyway, I know that's a big conversation. The good news is I think that we can hopefully start going up 75 to 100% in terms
Good.
of participation, but we'll talk with the board about that tomorrow so that all of you understand where we are regionally in terms of capacity with other entities. And hopefully that'll help in trying to get more activities for them and get them filled up and generating revenue.
Well, Janice, thank you for that update. And while we're talking about the Base Center, I had the opportunity to speak to Cindy Pennington, Michael Katz, and their CFO yesterday about, kind of the challenges that they've had. And one of the things that I said to them when I was speaking with them, because they're coming before us tomorrow at our committee of the whole, was, it'd be great if they made money and hand over fist. But, as you look around the country, those big venues, big convention centers, they typically, don't necessarily always make money. And, you hope to kind of break even. If they make a little something, that's great. But I look at it more like you mentioned as a community amenity. When I graduated from Pensacola High School in 1986, we were the second graduating class
Yeah, you were.
to graduate in that Civic Center. And I was there the year before when my brother graduated in 1985, and he was the first class that got to graduate in the Civic Center. Prior to that, everyone did them in, at the football fields, and it would rain, you had mosquitoes, it was problems. So it's a great community asset. And, I hate the fact that they had a tough year last year, but, alone. One of the things I look forward to talking with you and my counterparts on the board tomorrow about is the shuttered venues plan from SBA. We had a long talk about that yesterday with the folks from the Base Center, and apparently they don't qualify because ASM, their parent company, is just too large, too many venues, too many employees. And so it is a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. And, one of the things in the article this morning that they were asking about is, hey, well, what happened to the plans to modernize the Base Center? Well, COVID happened, right? I mean, everything kind of was put on the back burner. I mean, we were moving very quickly toward doing something, because we knew that the Base Center was, rapidly reaching the end of its useful life if we didn't inject some new, capital into it to, remodel it or renovate it. So I think you're going to see those conversations starting to happen again. I look forward to talking. The thing that was fascinating to me, and you touched on it a little bit, Janice, and you and I had a sidebar conversation yesterday about it, was, this notion of we're at 50% capacity, but are we doing that to ourselves? Is that a self-imposed limitation? It's really constricting the revenue over there. And I spoke with the folks at ASM, the folks that run the Base Center, and I asked them, I said, well, why are you not going? Because they pointed out there are some other venues in the area geographically that are at 75% capacity. One of these venues over in Jacksonville is at 100% capacity. And I kind of said jokingly, I said, well, why are we not 100% too? I don't want to be third. I may not necessarily want to be the first guy that goes to 100%, but I don't want to be third. I mean, when you're looking at folks that are really laying people off, cutting people's hours, limiting their ability to book big shows, like Santana was supposed to come here in October. I want to go see Santana. They can't do it at 50%. It doesn't make money. So, folks that are watching this and are interested in entertainment, the hockey team, having, Monster Jam, the big trucks, the bull riding, all these fun events that we have at the Civic Center, you'll want to pay attention to tomorrow's conversation of the board. I mean, I know a lot of what we talk about is not interesting. A lot of people think it's very boring, but this conversation is very important. And it's, I would say the Bay Center touches just about everyone in Escambia County one way or the other. Some of them feel like,
Yeah, and I do want to mention that we did we did take advantage last year of, unfortunately, the closing, and we were able to add the new big Jumbotron. I call it Jumbotron. I'm not
yeah,
really,
it's nice.
it's fantastic. And the corner boards. So you have
Yep.
another way to view. And then we also, while the regular citizens may not see this, we made the improvements to the locker rooms for the Sun Belt.
Yep.
So there were a lot of improvements that were able to be made. Also to the food venues, right? To the kiosks there. Now, what we would love to do is, like you're saying, we'd love to have club level seating and things like that, which those are the things which can really enhance a center like ours. Like if you notice in Tallahassee, they have really made a big difference in Tallahassee with doing the club level seating in their civic center, where entities are able to go and, do block seats and stuff like that.
Yes. Yes. That's a big part of what we, what I think would be a good idea for what we do with the Civic Center. I mean, there's no luxury boxes. I mean, that's a market waiting to be tapped. I mean, there's a lot of companies would buy luxury boxes here in town. I know that they would. It's a great way to do business, and every other city has it. So I'm having those conversations again. And to the News Journal's question about, what happened? Well, here's what happened. COVID. That's what happened. And, we weren't even sure this thing was going to have the doors open, let alone, dumping hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars potentially into it. So, but stay tuned as we're on the front edge of, wiping COVID out. And I believe that we are. You will see those conversations resume very, very quickly. Well, Janice, yeah, that'll be a great discussion tomorrow. Do you want to mention anything? I don't want to steal Eric's thunder, but do you have any input about the fire chief selection? We've been about 2 years without a fire chief, going on 2 years. I think it's a big problem. I think it's a
I'm
big.
actually going to let Eric do that because
Okay, we're gonna let Eric.
the interviews, and so I think he's excited about some of the interviews.
Perfect. Okay, Eric, that's a good time for us to segue over to you. So you've got your microphone off. Okay, there you go. Tell us about the number of applicants, the strengths of these guys, and if you think we're going to have the. It's funny, we're doing this now as American Idol is doing their final selections. I think our guy is probably a little more important. But are we going to have a winner? Are we going to get a winner out of this process? A selectee?
I feel like we are. I feel like we're going to get a winner. Pretty excited about the candidacy pool. We had somewhere around 70 candidates. Debbie and I are doing Teams meetings yesterday and today. We had narrowed it down to 13 applicants. And as we offered up the interviews, we had 2 that declined. So we always lose some through attrition. So, and we had 2 decline, and then we had one individual back out last minute after he accepted the interview with us. So we'll resume our interviews today. We had 5 yesterday. We had 3 strong candidates. I'm happy to say, pretty excited about those guys. So yes, I am very optimistic that we will find our fire chief in this election go around. And looking forward to resuming interviews today. I've got some candidates on there with some strong backgrounds, some large department experience, combination type experience, volunteer career type departments. And it's pretty exciting. So I'm very optimistic.
That's incredible. I know that when we had our, we put the solicitation out last time, we had about 60 people apply. And one of the things that I was concerned about last time around was that the pay, it looked as though it was a little low. It looked like, it topped out in the high 80s. And I see as we go to myescambia.com and you key search on employee wages, and then you punch in fire PD, you see that there are, many lieutenants, even some firefighters make that amount. Lots of our guys make 6 figures. I mean, it's a good job if you do a full career, right? You're not gonna get rich at it, but you'll have one heck of a pension. But I always thought that if you're starting your chief below where all your battalion chiefs are and many of your lieutenants and some of your firefighters, that was a recipe for a disaster. So tell us what the pay band is and what we think this chief should be paid.
I think the pay band starts out in the low 90s and it goes up to, I believe, 130 is what we've got at the pay band range.
Okay, good.
We're going to negotiate with the incumbent whenever we're going to negotiate with a candidate when they come in, but we do have a good range to negotiate with. And I do think you're absolutely right. I do think because of that increase of pay band that we captured quite a few better candidates, let's just say, from larger departments. Because I mean, they're already a large department. They're making six figures, and that's what's going to be attractive to them. So that's how you get the bigger candidates who's got the experience in a large department system.
Yeah, I am really excited about that. I think having a strong chief coming in is going to do wonders for that department. I feel like there's been a lack of leadership in that department. I'm not speaking to you specifically. Like I said at the meeting, I meant what I said. I think you got handed a lit stick of dynamite, and you've done the best that you could. And I think there's been a noticeable difference since you've been there. So I do appreciate you stepping up. I know Janice tapped you on the shoulder and said, congratulations. And I'd love to see your face that day. That would have been $1 million picture. But that to me, Eric, that's leadership. It's leadership when you are in an organization, things don't work out, whoever's at the top for one reason or another either resigns, gets fired, or quits. And the thing that concerns me is I haven't really seen people stepping up to take that leadership role organically. And that's a real concern to me, because that's when leaders step up, right?
That's correct.
I'd like to think there's some lieutenants or some battalion chiefs that, want it. I can do this. I grew up here. This is my hometown. I want to be chief of but I just didn't really see that happening. And that concerned me. So maybe it takes bringing an outsider in. Maybe that's what it takes to get the leadership that we need. But I look forward to getting that done. And for people who are watching, we as commissioners, we have no say in who Janice and her team hires. That's correct, right, Janice? We have no sway whatsoever in this. So this is we hire Janice and she brings her team aboard. And, we have a few of her hires, we get to, affirm, for lack of a better word.
Ratify. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But for the most part, she has a wide latitude to bring in her team. So this is one I'm going to watch very closely. Obviously there's some issues, but while we're on the subject of public safety, Eric, I'm going to bounce a couple ideas off of you because, one of the things now that I have been reelected, one of the things I put in my plan next for Escambia was for us to get on a replacement cycle for our apparatus and our equipment. We did that when I was a school board member on the school buses. It was painful, but when you do that and you put these expensive pieces of equipment into service with a life cycle, a defined life cycle, and you keep most of it under warranty for that period, you end up saving in the long run. So what's your thoughts on getting us to a plan of with a fixed replacement cycle for this equipment and apparatus in the fire department?
That is something we're absolutely wanting to do. You're absolutely right. So if we keep our equipment within the warranty, we don't have such a high, maintenance cost. So everything that we've purchased in the past, I can't tell you how many years, have been out of loss funds. So we've depended on loss funds to augment our capital equipment and those big improvements like that. So we're working within the budget this year to try to fund within the budget at least 2 apparatus every year for a replacement program. So we are striving to get there within the budget. So that way we have a mechanism for funding. We're not depending on the loss funds. As you know, sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't. And fire, unfortunately, in the past year or so, borrowed from the future loss funds. So we can't rely on that going forward to purchase apparatus. So that's something we're absolutely working towards to try to fit within the budget of the fire department. You're right. It's imperative. We've got to do that. We've got to have a replacement plan. We got to have it on a cycle. And we've got to have a funding source, an identified funding source, and a means to get it. You're right.
And
Yes, Janice?
And to piggyback on that, so we have all of the departments. One of the things that you're going to see this year with the budget is you're going to see a capital plan. Now, the capital plan is only going to be for vehicles this year because for us to get all of the capital into a plan is going to take another year. But you're going to see from us an actual capital plan this year. And I mean, those are hundreds of vehicles from every department. Now, the good news as well is since we've had fleet manage with Wes and Jamie, them managing our fleet. We recently commissioned a fire truck, an apparatus study, which we just got back in the past week. And I'm meeting with Eric and Debbie. We're talking about the distribution to the commissioners so you can see it. We had this company come in and they went like fender to fender or bumper to bumper on our vehicles. And they did a fantastic job because our fleet maintenance department needed a benchmark as to where all of our vehicles were. And I will tell you that I think we're a little bit pleasantly surprised about the outcome.
Oh, good.
Because yes, I think that a lot of our vehicles may have been getting maintenance or being taken for maintenance that might not have necessarily been needed. So anyway, so we're protecting fleet maintenance by giving them a benchmark, but we're also going to provide to you all, like I said, a bumper to bumper analysis of our apparatus. And
I
on
look,
top
I
of
look
that,
forward to seeing that.
we'll also have that capital plan for you. We don't want you to be shocked because there's never been a capital plan done in the county from what we can tell. So we're trying to figure out how to share with you all the information that needs to be shared because unfortunately there's been, just because there wasn't information in one place, you all didn't have that. And so we're just trying to make sure that we provide that to you all in such a way that it's not overwhelming because just at first it's extremely overwhelming.
Well, if I can make a suggestion, if it's really, really, really bad news, maybe give it to us on the way out the door after the meeting.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good idea.
No, I'm kidding. All kidding aside, I mean, it's a serious topic and, I don't envy you in having to be the bearer of the bad news, but, at some point, some of these things got to get fixed. They got to get cleaned up and put on the right path. And so, I want to talk about the replacement cycle. The other thing that I think it's imperative for us to do, I mean, I'm not blind to the fact that I do believe we need to raise our starting pay, not only for the fire, but we've got to do something for corrections. That's a very difficult job. We're having, 50 or 60 vacancies. People don't want to do it. We've had some bad press this week, some alleged misconduct. So it's one of those jobs. It's public service, and you'll get an incredible pension. You'll get incredible health insurance. There's some great benefits to go along with it, not unlike being a fireman or a teacher, a corrections person or a deputy sheriff. But these are difficult jobs and they're not sexy. I mean, right? And there are a lot of ways you can make a lot more money. But I would say I learned this when I was on the school board, and I spoke to the director of HR, Dr. Alan Scott, and he told me, he goes, I always tell my starting teachers, you're entering public service. You're doing a service to the community, the country. You're going to help kids learn, and you're not going to get rich. But he said, if you do a full career in the Escambia County School District, and I would say the same thing applies to what we do here in the county, whether it's fire, EMS, corrections guards, you do a full career in public service in the state of Florida, Escambia County, you're going to have a nice retirement, and you're going to have good benefits. And you'll be potentially, if you start early enough, you'll be in your early 50s, my age right now, and retired with a pension. So, I just wish that we could get kids to understand that. But when you're 20, I mean, the world is your oyster, right? You want to, like my own son, I try and talk to him about it. Kids want to take trips to Europe. They want to do things. They don't want to think about the future. And if you tell them, hey, you can retire when you're my age, they don't get it. They're like, well, you're. I say all that to say.
But we're going to bring a signing. We're going to make sure that the signing bonus is very clear in our
Yes.
HR policies. So that's one of the things that we're going to hopefully bring to you all on May 6th. We believe that we already have maybe some abilities for recruitment incentives, but we definitely want to make sure that it's very clear that a signing bonus. So we're working between legal and HR to make sure that the language is appropriate, that it meets the state's muster in terms of being able to provide it. So,
well, we're in a competition. I mean, make no mistake about it. We're in a competition for talent. I had the opportunity to speak with Sheriff Simmons at the groundbreaking the other day and ask how things were going over there. And they're doing some things within their department, and they're feeling pretty confident about, their ability to recruit. And I just think that's fantastic. So whatever we need to do, when I became a school board member in 2006, we were like the training school district. We had the lowest starting pay, and our journeyman teachers were leaving and going to Okaloosa and Santa Rosa County. And what we did was we undertook a multi-year approach. And I think that's what we got to do here in the county. We don't want to be the training district for fire, EMS, or any of these other things. We want to have a competitive starting wage, starting rates, right? And we want to have a competitive scale that keeps folks here. And I think it's going to be difficult, and I know that we're bargaining, so I have to be very careful what I say, but I just think, speaking at the 50,000 foot level, obviously, because we don't sit down at the table and bargain, you have your team that does that based upon the guidance that we give, but funding is important. And our MSBU, I'm not willing to raise it. And I've said that and I campaigned on it. I think to do that would be a tax increase. However, I do think, and I'm going to propose this year, one of the things I'm going to propose is that we do an altered method of revenue generation that will not generate a tax increase notification this year, but that will grow in the years to follow with a base MSBU that's lowered and the addition of an MSTU, which will capture the same revenue that the $125 MSBU would have captured, but yet will grow with inflation. In other words, it will generate more money every year based on the same rate, a base plus an MSTU. And I think because the trap that we're stuck in, and this, I know this is very technical, but for people that are interested, the trap that we're in is that MSBU doesn't grow. It's a static number, but yet our costs increase every single year. So, when the guys in fire say, you need to raise the MSBU, they're not wrong in terms of we need to have more revenue, but in terms of raising the MSBU, I'm not going to double an MSBU on a guy who owns a 3-bedroom, cinder block house on the west side of Pensacola and make him pay double. I think there's a more intelligent way to do it. I was working with Amy Lavoie on that plan with Stephen Schmidt. They're both gone now. So COVID happened, but I think over the next several years, Janice, I think you're going to find there's going to be some very good ideas put forward. Some that really will generate more revenue in the years to come. My issue and my particular philosophy is I like to keep a rate steady. Keep a rate steady, and as the economy grows, that generates more money. Now, the state of Florida, the way their legislators want us to do it, whether you're talking about your FEFP with the schools or you're talking about your millage rate with the county, they want you to roll it back so you never get any kind of increase, or else you got to say it's a tax increase. My thing is, if you raise my rate, you're raising my taxes. But if you keep your rate steady, and it generates more money, I have no problem letting that happen. I think that's the only way we can keep up with the cost of inflation. So I'm saying a lot there, Janice, to kind of project what I'm going to be bringing, because I think we bring that along with the replacement cycle. I think that puts us on a good footing to speak with the fire union in particular, and really get the starting pay up where it needs to be to help us at least not be the training county, right, for lack of a better term, because I know it's like.
Yeah, and I think the good news is that the new programs that we put in place, the OpenGov, and then also the Kronos that's going to manage your HR. I mean, because right now, today, I still can't tell you how many full-time FTEs we have coming into work today. I'd have to go to
That's a problem.
Right. And you can't either. And so as a commissioner, how do you make that decision from a policy perspective of what you want to fund and how you want to fund it when you don't even know how many employees you have and where they are? And so the good news is these programs, so the two areas that we're really focusing on for this year's new budget are the capital plan and then also employees.
Yes.
Because we're going to have to show you a 5-year trend, right? You've got to see what the implementation of the $10 to $15 is going to cost the county.
Right.
Not because you're going to fund the 15 this year, but you need to know, like you're saying, where you're going. And it will have an impact on every single level of our departments. And so that's our goal this year for this year's budget. Obviously, we'll fund, the other things that we need for continuity of services. But we feel like if we can focus on those two things for you guys, that will really help you solidify policies like you're talking about to help you fund where we need to be in the next 5 years. So
absolutely. I think you're going to see the board discuss this a lot. I mean, obviously we're interested in stabilizing. I think there's a lot of things that are going to converge together. We're going to have a brand new fire chief. We're going to hopefully have a replacement cycle that's rational that we can. But that's going to take discipline on our part. Make no mistake about it. We spend a lot of that local option sales tax money on things that, different commissioners think are important. Obviously, I think we all believe, I know that we all believe that public safety is important. Obviously, infrastructure is important. So I think you're going to see that the convergence of, a brand new agreement with our firemen that we're going to negotiate. We're going to have a replacement cycle. I'm going to bring an idea for maybe a more predictable funding source with a hybrid MSBU base and an MSTU over the top that will hopefully grow and allow us to, and then it's going to require the cooperation of frankly, the paid career firefighters. I mean, if they want a fourth man on the truck, I'm going to propose that it be a volunteer. I mean, treat the volunteers well. Volunteers have been mistreated in this county. And I don't care what anyone says, I know too much, and I've heard from too many of them that have given me horror stories. So that's part of the reason, Eric, I think a strong chief with a background in a combination department is going to be imperative, because I think there's a role for volunteers to play. There are folks that are fully certified. They work for the DOD. They work for other entities. They live in Pensacola and they want to serve their community, and we ought to let them do it. They're actually have the same certifications and they want to volunteer. So with all these good things we're going to do for the career side, they've got to work with us and help us to cultivate a good core of volunteers. And I think if we can make that happen, I think we can all get a win out of this. So it's going to be an area of intense focus of mine, because I want to get it fixed. I think right now it's broken, and it's fixed, and it will get fixed. So Eric, do you want to give us some highlights from last week's public safety report? I know you're doing a new report, and any highlights that you'd like to bring to our attention?
Sure, absolutely. So we give you guys an update of where we are in public safety. We ran, 4 working structure fires last week. As you see, we still have fires that happen, and the county catches fire, and that's why we're one of the highest, highest counties that have more structure fires. Some interesting facts. Our EMS crew, I got to tell you, fire does a fantastic job. They get out there, they get the job done. But since the first part of this year, January 1st to the end of March, our EMS crew have transported over 10,900 people. That's a absorbent number. That's you talk to some other systems that they only transport 5,000 plus people a year. And here in 3 months, we do 10,900. Now, that's a culmination of interfacility transfers, 911 calls, the Perdita bays, the freestanding ERs, even the Navy base transferring their people out from their hospitals. So our EMS system is really busy. The demand has really picked up. And to hear you talk about the MSBU and the MSTU offset and everything, that's exciting. I'm excited when you, recognize.
I'm going to bring it.
Thank you. I mean, we need these things. Public safety is we're running, and these men and women are doing a fantastic job with what we got right now. But we start adding those little nuggets, I'm going to tell you what, we will be the premier benchmark public safety in the state of Florida. And like you, I wholeheartedly feel that. I mean, we've got some good men and women, and I'm amazed every day about what they achieve and what they do, especially like the amount of calls they're seeing, over the weekend, and how they handle it. Everybody handles it with professionalism. So public safety's been hopping and busy. Our lifeguards are back on the beaches. They're making contacts and saves. From the lifeguards to EMS to fire to our dispatch people that take the calls. I mean, we're all busy across the board, and I'm excited when you made those comments that public safety's help. You're focusing on that. Thank you, sir. So I can't stress that enough.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you again. I think there was a noticeable change in the atmosphere the minute you were tapped for this position. So I look forward to, a lot of good things coming forward. Now, I appreciate the updates from Janice and Eric and Robert. I appreciate your patience. We got Robert Turpin here just sitting kind of smiling and listening. And I apologize. Sometimes these updates run long, but you're our special guest this morning. Robert Turpin, you are the manager of Marine Services for Escambia County. So welcome to our Coffee with the Commissioner as we enter the warm swimming, boating, and fishing season here in Escambia County, Pensacola. That's when your office really has a lot of input into the quality of life. So tell us about what your department does. And good morning.
Well, and thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and share some things that Marine Resources is doing. Our mission statement is to provide access to safe, healthy, and productive waterways. So we're balancing the access with the sustainability of that resource to provide us quality access. So we're providing the access through our boat ramps, through our paddlecraft launches, and even our waterfront parks. We work really, really hand in glove with our parks department to provide those quality access points for the public, not just for the residents, but also for that valuable tourism industry upon which we all depend. And for 19 of my 22, I just started my 22nd year with Escambia County, and it's been a thrill, I have to say. But for 19 of those years, I was a division of one, and we could not have done what we did had it not been for partnerships. not just the volunteers, but the other departments in Escambia County, the road department, fleet maintenance, engineering. We've done such a great job with the resources that we have because we're able to work together. And I want to give credit to the overall team because it could not have been done by one person. So our artificial reefs, we're one of the premier counties in the state of Florida, and in fact in the whole country for artificial reefs. We've leveraged two major bridge replacements with two of the largest sets of artificial reefs using concrete demolition products. We also
And let me ask you about that. When you do that, obviously you put the coordinates out there so the fishermen know where to go fish, right? I mean, is that something that we provide?
That's correct. We have on our website, we have the list of artificial reefs. And then also I was talking with one of our marine electronics dealers this week, and when he sells a new set of marine electronics, oftentimes a customer will say, would you please load up the county's coordinates on there? And then he's able through our GPX files to be able to load those automatically. I'm old school. We did it, one number at a time on the old
Right.
Boran. And now it's great to be able to use those technologies to be able to find and safely navigate through our waterways. So between our artificial reefs and our boat ramps, we support a tremendous and dynamic charter fleet, not
Yes.
just diving charters, but also fishing charters. And that charter fleet has changed over the years, and we've been able to strategically situate ourselves to accommodate that. For example, back in the 1950s, the most of the people that fished on a boat that wasn't their own or their friends was what we call the old head boats. The old wooden hulls that came out of Port of Pensacola and down there by Comandencia Slip. Those would you'd walk on there and you'd pay your little fee, and they would give you a stringer, and you'd hang your catch on your stringer, and at the end of the day, you took your share home. And then in the 1970s, it was some of the larger boats, some of your 40, 50 footers that were really operating more on a charter basis. And through the change in the economy, through the change in the fisheries, that's really transitioned now into most of our charter trips are done by what we call six-pack boat, these small, between 16 and 40 feet in those two classes of vessels. We've got over 200 commercial vessels that are operating in that, and they're running charter fishing, charter diving, dolphin watch, parasailing. So all of these vessels are providing access to our residents as well as our visitors. So that part of it has been a real important aspect of why we've doubled our saltwater boat ramp inventory in Escambia County. And we did that through the strategic leadership of the Board of County Commissioners. In 2007, they allocated $4 million for property acquisition, because without the waterfront property, you cannot build a boat ramp. And by having that property acquisition in place, when the Deepwater Horizon oil spill and the natural resources damages assessment funding became available, the very first project was funding the construction of the Mahogany Mill boat ramp because we had that property. We were shovel ready. And so we built that boat ramp. We built the huge freshwater boat ramp up at Perdido River off of Mobile Highway. And the newest one, when we get our final permit from the Army Corps of Engineers, will be the first public boat ramp on Perdido Bay that's actually in your district.
I'm excited about that one. Hey, and on that topic, let's focus on that for a minute, because I've heard a lot of different things, but that's a $3.5 million project, right?
That's our estimate right now.
And we have 3 million in the bank from different sources, correct? So we need to come up with another $500,000. If I could wave a magic wand and we had that additional $500,000, when you showed me the plans, I got a set of them in my office right here. Where our plans, are they at 100%? Our plans?
Yes, sir. We're at 100%. Once we get the final permit from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, we will be able to take that to bidding, to solicitation.
Okay. And when do we expect, because I know we have all the other permits except for the Corps of Engineers. When do we anticipate? Can I light a fire to get that? What can we do to make that happen faster?
Just break out that magic wand.
Dude, no, but in all honesty, when do we anticipate getting that permit? Because I want to push this project. This is a 39-acre piece of property. It's in a perfect location, right there on the west side of town on Perdido Bay. It's gonna, I mean, looking at the plans, it's gonna be amazing. Big parking spots. I mean, big sized for people so they can bring their car and their trailer. They're not on the side of the road like you see at these other boat launches. I mean, it's gonna be fantastic, well designed. So how do we speed that process? I'd like to see dirt turning this year on that. How do I make that happen?
Honestly, I wish I could tell you, sir. It's an Army Corps of Engineers permit, and they have to consult with other federal agencies like National Marine Fisheries Service
Right.
on things like endangered species. And I wish I could give you a timeline, but if I did, I would put myself at risk of not being able to properly estimate that.
Hey, you're smart not to.
And the only thing I would mention is this. I think that this is an excellent project for you to consider for those America Rescue Plan Act funds.
Yes. Yeah.
Because, right, it's an outdoor event, it's an outdoor venue, and we already know that with, as we recover from COVID, I think people are spending more time outdoors. I know that our parks everything is busting at the seams that's an
Yes.
environmental or an outdoor. And so, and because it's infrastructure, you're not necessarily spending it on a recurring, while I
Right.
may recommend a couple of recurring things to you all.
Right.
Particularly related to employees to get us where we need to be. For the most part, our recommendations to you all are going to be infrastructure, non-recurring expenses for these funds. But I think
and that's what Congress wants us to spend those funds on, related to COVID and infrastructure and things like that. But let me ask this, Janice. So we've got 3 million in the bank. We need another 500,000. When do we anticipate? Because we're supposed to get 61.7 million from the American Rescue Plan. When is that money going to come to us? Do we know?
so like I've been telling everyone, we check FAC every day, the Florida Association of Counties, we check NACO. I've checked, Zanani and I both, she checks U.S. Department of Treasury every day. We're looking to see when the form comes out where I have to say Escambia County did have COVID, and then they were supposed to then provide us the check of the 30 million. So we get 30 million now, and we get 30 million not less than a year from now. That is what
And we have until 2024 with this.
December, yes. So one way you could consider it is 15 million a year. That might be one way the board wants to consider utilizing it, which might be a prudent way. That way, you don't spend all of it at one time. And then you could also, schedule it for different projects, right? Over those 4 years, you say, okay, we're going to put this much this year, that, and that to me seems to be a potentially thoughtful way to do it. We just haven't provided you all with those plans yet because we're still waiting for guidance. We think we know what the Treasury is going to tell us we can and can't do, but we really want to put, eyes to it. But I think this is a perfect example of a project though, because you've got the outdoor element, you've got the environmental element. So even if COVID comes next year again in such a way that it tries to shut us down, this is the kind of place where people can go socially distant and have that outdoor experience. So anyway.
Well, I'll bring it. The minute we have it, I will bring that. I will ask you, Janice, to add that to the agenda, and I'll sell it to my counterparts because this will be something that will benefit not just District 1, but District 2, all districts. I mean, it will be such a phenomenal feature that I think people from around the county will use it. Hey, and let me ask you, Robert, since we're talking about boat ramps, boat launches, I was, kind of looking through the website and there's a lot of information online, but where would you say there's a new resident just moved here, perhaps military, just transferred in for a couple of years, boating enthusiast, where would he go on our site, or where would you recommend someone like that go to find a list of all the public accessible boat ramps?
We have on the Escambia County website, if you just do a keyword search on boat ramps, it'll take you right to it. You can do a keyword search on artificial reefs. But I do want to mention that these boating and fishing activities, fishing and diving, the economic impact of that was measured by University of West Florida led socioeconomic study that estimated those figures throughout the state of Florida, and they estimated them by county. And this was in 2015. So what we've heard is that actually boating went up in utilization during the COVID, because you can
What else could you
social
do?
distance by nautical
Right.
miles. You know,
Right.
you're out there and can get with the people in your household or your close friends. You're able to get out there and spread out and enjoy this waterway. But $150 million a year in economic activity within Escambia County, and it supports over 2,200 jobs. And that's a fantastic return on investment for these investments, and they really are investments that we make when we're buying property. And those are, once we have that property for waterway access, generally that's for future generations as well. So those values, those economic benefits, continue to recur. And I do want to mention also that we have the snorkeling reefs. The newest
Yes.
snorkeling reef that we built at Casino Beach
Yes.
is another one of the very first ones were built here in Escambia County. And now we're seeing the counties to the east of us, you know, Okaloosa, Walton, Santa Rosa, Bay, and to the east, they're all building these snorkeling reefs because they've become super popular. With
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
the-
They're awesome.
Yeah.
I've been out to the one at Point East or whatever. I've been out there swimming. Hey, everyone wants me to ask you this. So we all saw the video online and I grew up here in Pensacola, and you know they're out there, the great white shark, right? But it's kind of rare to catch one from the beach. So you saw the video. How common are the great white shark in these waters?
You know, I guess I have to apologize. Over the decades that people have said that they've seen great whites out there, and we're like, yeah.
You didn't believe them?
No,
Yeah.
But now that they have these tracking devices, you know, they've essentially put trackings on, let's say, 10% of the great white population. And if that's 10% that come into the Gulf of Mexico, that's a fantastic number of fishes that we were not aware, and we didn't have definitive proof, but now we're aware of. So
Well, how about the one they pulled up on the beach? You saw that video?
Yeah. Well, we've got some big makos too that come in, especially this time of the year. And I'm not sure if it's following the cobia migration or the tarpon, but we do see those large sharks. And fortunately, they're feeding in their natural food chain, and we're never part of a completely alternate universe when we're in the water. But it's so rare that the chance to see one of these fish is, it would be a thrill of a lifetime. And I've got a little over 3,000 dives under my covers of my logbook, and I've never seen one. But it would be a thrill. I'm not sure if I'd rather see it from the boat or underwater. I'll be honest with you.
I'll take the boat, Alex, for 500. I think of all the times that I've waded out to the second sandbar to cast into the blue and scurried back to the beach, fishing for pompano from the beach. I enjoy doing that. And apparently this guy takes his kayak out and fishes from Pensacola Beach right off of Portofino, dumps his baits out there and comes back to the shore. And that's where they caught this thing. And I'm thinking to myself, I've swam out there. Anyway, I just thought it was kind of nifty to see that video, to know that they're actually great white sharks out there. I saw another video recently that was in the Gulf of Mexico, not near here, but over by Galveston. And there was this massive pod of orcas. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen one here. Have you ever seen? I mean, I know they're here. They come in the Gulf of Mexico, but it's somewhat rare. What about orcas out in the Gulf?
And I worked in the oil field for a few years, and the minerals management system back in the day, they put together a guide to marine mammals that are in the Gulf of Mexico, and orcas were in there. I have seen whales. Unfortunately, sometimes we see them when they come and strand on our beach, but we had a juvenile sperm whale. It's been quite a few years ago, but it came ashore, and so they are out there. They're part of a healthy ecosystem, and that's the thing, is that when you're you have such a healthy ecosystem when now you see, American bald eagles flying overhead, and you've got
Yes.
pelicans that have come back, that indicates that we're doing right by the resource. And that goes to the other major part of my program, and that's waterways management. And it's not just managing for safety. It's not just the no wake zones. But when we had the oil spill, it was our department, Natural Resources Management Department. We were a different name back then, but we were the county department that took control as best we could within the state and federal response system, and protected our local waterways. We had boom sets across all of our bayous, and we had crews out there to let boaters in and out so that we could use them to the extent that they safely could. But we still have spills in our waterways. In fact, yesterday there was a notice of an oil sheen in Old River by one of the condominiums. So
Oh, no.
we one of the things that I think we really need to look at would be to try to obtain some of the Coastal Impact Assistance Program funds that go to all the states to our west. And that would allow us to fund with those resources that come from the separation fees from the royalties from the oil and gas industry, a local readiness and response, so that when, and I would say, I'd love to say if, but when the next threat is upon us, that we're well situated to be able to respond to that. And that's with equipment, training, and we could talk for another show on something like that. But we also deal with derelict vessels. Unfortunately,
Yes.
we have 7 vessels right now that are in a state of being designated derelict, so that we can have those removed. In fact, we'll be bringing at your next Board of County Commission meeting grant agreements from Florida Fish and Wildlife for the funds to remove 2 of those, and then probably at the next meeting we'll have another one. But we have
Wow.
to protect our waterways. It's our bread and butter. If it's a resource that's so valuable for us to utilize, then we must do our best to protect it. So,
Well, I think Robert, when you add that $150 million direct financial or economic impact plus the 2,200 jobs, you combine that with the tourism, you combine that with some other things. Some folks have told me, ecotourism. I mean, that's all contingent upon not having a BP oil spill with oil on the beach. Everyone remembers what happened then. And I think some of the work that you and your department and your peers do keeps that engine generating revenue, which helps us with our local option sales tax, our gas tax, everything else. So it is vitally important. I mean, it's economic development in plain terms. So, but before we go, it's hard to believe we're out of time already. I mean, these conversations are so I really appreciate you being here. You, Janice and Eric, we always find a way to talk about some pretty compelling stuff. But before the show started, you and I were talking about the snapper assessment. I think that's big news. Give us 2 minutes on how that happened, what the previous estimate was, and what the impact is in your opinion.
Sure. So for the federal fisheries management agencies have been estimating the red snapper stock in the Gulf of Mexico at about 36 million fish. There was a Congress allocated a number of millions of dollars, and it was a study led by the University of Texas, and they did a comprehensive study of the red snapper population in the Gulf of Mexico. And their data show that there's 3 times the number of red snapper in the Gulf of Mexico than were used by the National Marine Fisheries Service to establish our quotas, our commercial quotas, our charter quotas, and the recreational fishery. So our seasons have been literally a third of what they could have been for a number of years. So we're hoping that the National Marine Fisheries Service and the Gulf Council will take these new data into consideration and give us we may not get a longer season this spring, but hopefully we'll get a fall season and then in future years. So we're putting the eco into ecotourism, which includes fisheries.
Oh, that's fantastic. And the final thing we'll talk about is a topic everyone loves, lionfish. So we're trying to go kill them. We're trying to make them into a food commodity. I'm not a seafood
They
eater.
don't taste good.
Yeah, that's what I say. I mean, I don't even eat seafood, but I know folks are saying it's a delicacy. I'm not a seafood eater. Are you? What does it taste like? Is it something we could market and sell? I don't know.
Sure. In fact, this month on April 23rd, on a Friday night, we're going to have an event for people to try lionfish, and I will be one of the chefs that are showing a recipe that I developed. It is quite good if you prepare it the right way, but like a lot of fish, you really need to handle it well and prepare it well, and be careful because they do have those venomous spines, and I can tell you by experience that one time is enough to teach you how painful a lionfish sting is. And
I
but
had it
yes.
in a dip, Robert. It was terrible. And it was a nationally recognized chef, James Beard chef, that prepared it. So I would love to try your recipe if you can make it taste good. It was, I just did, and I love seafood. I was so excited to try it, and I thought, ugh, because I would
Too
love
bad.
it to be a delicacy, right? So we could get rid of them.
Yeah, well, you know, the final thing about those, you were telling me about just how they are devastating to the juvenile mingo snapper.
Yep.
You were telling me, tell us about the one that you cut open once you caught him. What he had.
Yeah, and this is well documented. When we harvest these lionfish off our reefs and we open up their gut contents, I pulled one in off of one of our artificial reefs and opened it up, and it had 24 juvenile vermilion snapper in its gut, and these were fresh. So this was his morning breakfast. And if you figure that one fish ate 24 in the morning, if he eats it every morning, plus 100 of his cohorts on that artificial reef, there's a tremendous impact of lionfish on our native population. So we have to eat them to beat them. So we're gonna
Eat them to beat them. Well, and they don't have a natural predator. I mean, what eats the lionfish except for us?
We're the best. We're our own best bet to try to stem this tide that's
Right.
working a little bit against
Well,
us.
well, I hate to do it, but man, we got our hour. And Robert Turpin, thank you so much for what you do for the community, and what you do to support tourism and fisheries, resilient coastlines. Thank you for all of that. I am going to push real hard to get this boat ramp in District 1. We're on a roll. We got our library. We're finishing plans for a brand new fire station in Beulah, and now we're going to have a state-of-the-art, probably I would say the flagship 39-acre boat ramp in Perdido Bay. Wouldn't you say that would be one of our best once it's done?
Absolutely. And it's been an honor to be with you and your stakeholders, and look forward to it. Anybody can call me anytime on my office phone. It's 595-FISH, 595-3474.
How'd you work that one out?
I had to wait for somebody to retire.
Very good, very good. Well, it's going to be a great year for a lot of different reasons. Looking forward to the summer season, going out fishing, and appreciate you being here this morning. Janice Gilley, appreciate you being here. Yeah, I know it's a lot to ask you to get up early. Eric, again, thank you for calling in. Thanks for everything you're doing in public safety. And you all have a great rest of the week. And we'll see you all next month at our next coffee.